The strongest cage is not built with external force. It is constructed inside the opponent's own mind. When a person's actions conflict with their self-image, the resulting psychological tension forces them to rewrite their own logic just to protect their ego. Cognitive dissonance is the operational art of weaponizing self-deception. In this masterclass, discover how to extract micro-commitments, engineer identity traps, and compel opponents to actively defend the very concessions you force them to make. Directly requesting a massive concession instantly triggers defensive alarms. Once an opponent agrees to a small favor, statement, or baseline term, their self-perception shifts. They now view themselves as cooperative and aligned with the process. This initial agreement acts as a psychological wedge, loosening their defensive posture. A master strategist uses these minor micro-commitments to establish an operational foothold, making subsequent far larger demands feel like logical extensions of the initial agreement rather than radical shifts in position opponents' projected identity. By explicitly tying your preferred outcome to a virtue they claim to possess, you force them into a psychological corner. To refuse your terms, they must publicly admit to being hypocritical, unreasonable, or incompetent. Because the human ego will go to extraordinary lengths to avoid internal shame and public contradiction, the opponent will comply with your demands simply to protect their carefully constructed identity. When individuals take an action that clashes with their true beliefs, their brain experiences severe cognitive dissonance. Rather than arguing with them, you create conditions where they must comply first. Once they yield, their mind immediately rushes to resolve the contradiction by convincing itself that the concession was actually wise, fair, or beneficial. You do not need to persuade them that your terms are right. You simply force the action and let their own ego rewrite reality to justify their surrender. Cornering an opponent without an exit path leads to irrational, desperate resistance. The ego preservation anchor provides a ready-made narrative that allows them to surrender while keeping their pride completely intact. As you strip away their strategic leverage, you simultaneously offer a dignified justification, framing their concession as a visionary compromise, a tactical pivot, or a generous partnership gesture. By giving their ego a comfortable exit route, you remove the fear of public embarrassment. They eagerly accept your narrative and execute your demands, relieved that they can yield without appearing defeated to their peers or organization. Human psychology is bound by the law of consistency. Once a direction is chosen, people feel immense internal pressure to remain on that path. Escalation spiral weaponizes this drive by constantly referencing past agreements to justify the next operational step. Each small compliance becomes the foundation for a larger request, creating a continuous feedback loop. Because stopping or reversing course would mean admitting that their previous choices were flawed, the opponent feels compelled to press forward. By progressively increasing the stakes at every turn, you guide them up an escalation spiral until they have yielded total structural authority. The pinnacle of cognitive dissonance manipulation is reaching absolute psychological lock-in, the state where the opponent no longer views themselves as a victim of your terms, but as their primary architect and defender. Once an opponent has made multiple concessions and rationalized them to protect their ego, their mind fully adopts your framework. The pinnacle of cognitive dissonance manipulation is reaching absolute psychological lock-in. To question the agreement at this late stage would mean shattering their own self-worth and acknowledging that they were outmaneuvered. Consequently, they double down on their commitment. When external friction, third-party objections, or internal dissent within their own team challenge the terms of the deal, the opponent will not fight you. They will fight their own allies to protect the agreement. They become an active enforcer of your strategy, utilizing their own authority and energy to suppress resistance on your behalf. By guiding them through calculated cognitive dissonance, you eliminate the need for ongoing enforcement. The opponent's own need for internal consistency locks them into compliance, ensuring that your strategic victory remains permanent, self-sustaining, and unassailable.